You think you can tell me what to do? Don't you dare lecture me about waiting in line! The sharp voice cut through the crowded bank lobby like a knife through glass. Heads turned, whispers spread, and all eyes locked onto the woman who had spoken, Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood, HOA board member, and known for starting arguments anywhere she went. The hook was set. Everyone in that bank knew something was about to go down. It was a Friday afternoon, the busiest time of the week for the small-town bank. The air smelled faintly of old carpet and printer ink. People clutched forms, checks, and deposit slips in their hands, shuffling impatiently in the long line that wrapped past the velvet ropes and almost to the door. Children whined, elders sighed, and office workers tapped their feet anxiously. Everyone was trying to keep their cool, except for Karen. Dressed in her oversized sunglasses, a leopard print cardigan, and clutching her purse like a weapon, she looked around with the face of someone who believed she was above every single person in the room. Standing directly behind her was a man in his mid-40s, plain clothes, a hard worker judging by the calluses on his hands, the kind of person who didn't talk much but knew how to stand up when pushed. He had quietly told her, "Ma'am, everyone's waiting their turn. Please don't try to cut the line." That single polite remark was enough to set Karen off like a firecracker. "Excuse me?" she snapped, voice rising, hands flailing. "Do you even know who I am? I'm on the HOA board. I don't waste my time standing around like the rest of you. I have things to do. Important things, unlike you people." The man simply shook his head, his voice calm but firm. "That doesn't make you special. We all have important things to do. You'll wait like the rest of us." Gasps rippled through the room. A few people nodded quietly, some even smiled, glad that finally someone had the courage to stand up to her. But Karen wasn't going to back down. That wasn't in her nature. She leaned forward, her voice dripping with contempt. "How dare you speak to me like that? You don't tell me where to stand. I have connections. I can make one phone call and have this whole bank rearranged for me." Murmurs rose in the background, people exchanging glances, some rolling their eyes. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Karen. She was the type to argue about lawn heights, mailbox colors, even the shade of paint on someone's porch. If there was peace, she would find a way to disturb it. And now here in the bank, she was in her element, an audience, a target, and an opportunity to prove her so-called authority. The man held his ground. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is a bank. Nobody cares about your HOA title. You're just another customer here." That sentence hit her like a slap in the face. Her cheeks flushed red and she threw her hands in the air, screeching, "Unbelievable! Do you hear this? I am being harassed! Harassed for simply pointing out how incompetent this bank is." At that moment, the bank manager, a tall man in a navy blue suit with a balding head and glasses, hurried out of his office, his voice calm but commanding. "What seems to be the problem here?" Karen spun on her heels dramatically. "Finally." "Someone in charge. This man here is threatening me. I've been waiting far too long, and I demand immediate service." The manager's eyes scanned the room, taking in the uncomfortable faces of the customers, the way no one backed up her story, the way the man stood quietly with dignity. "Ma'am," the manager said, "we're doing the best we can. Everyone here is waiting patiently. If you want to be served, you'll have to wait your turn as well." Karen gasped, as though she had just been insulted by royalty. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am? You can't talk to me like that. I could have your job for this." The manager, used to dealing with entitled customers, didn't flinch. "Ma'am, rules are rules. If you continue disturbing the peace, I'll have to ask you to leave." A quiet cheer seemed to rise in the crowd, though no one dared to clap just yet, but their approving glances said it all. The man who had stood up to Karen earlier crossed his arms and simply smirked, as if silently saying, "Justice at last." Karen, however, wasn't done. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and started dialing furiously. "You'll regret this. I'll have the board down here. I'll make sure this whole branch gets shut down if I have to. No one disrespects me like this." The room buzzed with tension, waiting for what would happen next. Karen's voice carried through the entire bank lobby as she held her phone to her ear, pacing back and forth near the velvet ropes like she owned the place. "Yes, it's Karen. I'm at the bank and they are refusing to serve me. Do you understand what I'm saying? They are refusing me. I need you to come down here immediately. I don't care who you send. This is an outrage. The customers exchanged glances, some whispering under their breath, others shaking their heads. The man who had stood up to her earlier kept his cool, leaning on the counter rail, clearly used to people like her. One woman muttered softly to her friend, "She pulls this stunt everywhere. Grocery store, gas station, even at the library. She just can't handle waiting like the rest of us." Karen snapped her phone shut dramatically, glaring at the bank manager. "Help is on the way. You'll be sorry you treated me like this." The manager, unfazed, calmly replied, "Ma'am, unless you calm down and wait your turn, I will have security escort you out." The crowd stiffened at those words, some secretly hoping it would come to that. Karen threw her head back and let out a sarcastic laugh. "Escort me out? Do you have any idea how ridiculous you sound? I could buy and sell this whole neighborhood." At that, the quiet man behind her finally spoke again, his voice firm, controlled, but cutting through the noise. "Ma'am, money doesn't buy respect. And right now you're losing what little you had left." The bank erupted in murmurs and a few scattered chuckles. Karen spun around, pointing a manicured finger in his face. "You think you're funny? You'll regret this when you're the one getting fined by the HOA for leaving your trash can out an extra hour. I remember your house." The man simply shook his head, unbothered. "Go ahead, fine me. At least the trash can doesn't scream in public." That line hit like a spark in dry grass. The room exploded with laughter. Even the bank tellers behind the glass couldn't help but stifle their smiles. Karen's face turned crimson, her jaw trembling with rage. "How dare you! This is harassment! This is bullying! I'll call the sheriff." But before she could dial again, 2 uniformed security guards entered from the side door, summoned quietly by the manager. They approached calmly but firmly. "Ma'am, we've had multiple complaints. You need to lower your voice and wait in line, or we'll have to escort you outside." Karen looked stunned, as if the idea of consequences was foreign to her. "Escort me? I'm the victim here." One guard gestured toward the exit. "This isn't a debate. Please come with us." The customers fell silent, watching the showdown unfold. Karen huffed, stomped, and made one last attempt to assert her power. "This whole bank will regret this. I will write reviews. I will file complaints. I will—" But her rant was cut short as the guards gently guided her toward the door. The crowd could no longer contain itself. Applause broke out, filling the lobby. People clapped, cheered, and even whistled. The man who had stood up to her earlier gave a small nod of satisfaction, his arms crossed as Karen was led outside, still shouting threats that grew fainter as the doors closed behind her. The bank returned to its natural rhythm, the line moving forward, people breathing easier. A woman near the back said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Finally, peace and quiet." That was better than TV. Laughter rippled through the room. The manager, adjusting his glasses, thanked the crowd for their patience. "Sorry for the disturbance, folks. Let's continue." The man who had been the first to confront Karen stepped up to the counter when it was his turn, sliding his paperwork forward. The teller smiled at him and whispered, "Thanks for standing up. Everyone here wanted to say something, but you did it." He just shrugged modestly. "Somebody had to." Outside the glass doors, Karen stood fuming, pacing on the sidewalk, still on her phone, ranting to anyone who would listen. But inside the bank, people finally felt the relief of calm. The moment became a story they'd all repeat later at dinner tables, at neighborhood barbecues, and at church gatherings. The day Karen lost it in the bank and finally got shut down. And as the man walked out after finishing his transaction, he glanced at Karen still ranting outside, shook his head with a grin and muttered under his breath, "Some people never learn." He walked away into the warm afternoon sun, leaving Karen alone in her storm of fury while the rest of the town carried on with their lives, free of her chaos, at least until the next HOA meeting.